The Banking Scene Director's Cut goes behind the scenes, sharing stories and insights to help you build the bank of tomorrow.
Hello, Andrew. You got me there after holidays, pushing me into a new content platform, the Banking Scene YouTube. And that means that we need to start building much more content, which is what I like to do the most with the banking scene. This week, we're gonna try a new concept and have a kind of a discussion. I'm gonna play advocate of the devil regarding the blog that you wrote. After all, I was on holiday, so I didn't have the chance to write anything relevant, but you did. And in a nutshell, can you please share with the people that are listening or watching what the blog of this week is about?
So in a nutshell, it's about agentic AI, but not from the perspective that I've been seeing it spoken about the most. You know, when we were at Money 2020 in June, there were lots of sessions about agentic AI and how the banks were using agents. But what was missing for me was any kind of conversation around how the customers are going to be using agents. Now, there was one specific session that I had sat in that was all about how the customers are going to be using agents. And it was from Dave Birch. And I had pretty much forgotten about it until I saw a recent LinkedIn post by Kirsty Rutter with a report that her and Dave had penned together. And I suddenly remembered, that's right. This is something I really want to talk about because I don't think people are talking about it enough. So the
Hasn't he
bloggers,
spoken about that also at our conferences last year?
yes, in a way, because he was talking about wallets and Dave is very much around the wallet being the core enabler of this agentic future. And he was talking about smart wallets. Which I think a lot of people were just putting in the bucket of, oh, it's a wallet. Because I personally don't really get on with the term wallets. I know that that's what Dave uses to be able to describe the kind of
Yeah,
concept.
because industry is using it everywhere.
Yeah, but to me, it's more personal than that. It's my agent. It's
Your
my,
personal assistant.
I come from a sci-fi background, and I am absolutely of the belief that within my lifetime, and as you can see from the gray hair, there's not much of that left. Within my lifetime, I
60
am
years
going.
now, isn't it?
Shh. Yeah. Um, I am going to have an agent. I'm going to be able to instruct an agent. It is going to be as close to me as possible. And I'm going to be able to instruct an agent to do things on my behalf. And that's the future that I don't think banks are paying enough attention to yet.
Can we compare that to, or can we, ontology-wise, also interpret it according to you, like, for example, democratization of family offices? There is an agent that takes care of your money, but doesn't hold the money, which also means that he's not the wallet as such, he just deals with the wallet.
So family offices is actually quite a good analogy because with a family office, you've got a trusted intermediary, right? And that trusted intermediary works solely for your benefit.
Yeah,
Obviously, they make money, the more money that you make,
of course.
which is also working for their own benefit. However, they are not bound to a single brand or product line or whatever. They scan the market. And yes, from a customer agent perspective, in my financial life, I believe that the human will be replaced by an autonomous agent working on my behalf within parameters that I set it, as I would set the parameters if I was wealthy enough to be working with a family office. I would set parameters and say, within these parameters, you go and do stuff for me.
Yep.
So I want you to do, to improve my financial health. And to do that, I want you to constantly be getting me money at the cheapest cost and earning me the most savings, the most return on my investment, something like that. And my agent will go and do that relentlessly for me, which is a completely different way that it works today for most people. For most people, you've got a primary bank account, you might have a mortgage account somewhere else, you may have
don't want to bother.
yeah, savings somewhere else, that kind of a thing. So that's the future where I think banks at the moment have been super quick to adopt AI. It's actually been quite surprising for me how quickly banks have adopted AI and grasped the new tools. I thought that they would be a little bit more cautious, but over the last year alone, it's been astonishing. At our own conferences, we've seen the kind of adoption for efficiency gains, productivity, fraud, and all of these things. Phenomenal use cases. And now Agentic AI, where they are getting more and more tasks that are automated beyond just RPA, robotic process automation. They're beginning to deploy their own agents internally. But I haven't yet sat down, had a decent conversation with bankers in the room about and when, not if, but what happens when customers start deploying their agents to you.
Exactly, and I'm completely deviating from the questions that we prepared here. If you go back to the parallel of the family offices again, banks should prepare for an agentic era, but they're not in charge of that era. It's kind of like the evolution we've seen or have not seen that we expected to see with open banking.
And there, I think you've just put the finger on one of the biggest threats to banks. But I think it's...
But again, is it a threat or is it just forcing them again to adapt? With family offices, there are probably more private banks than there are retail banks, and yet they all serve these family offices. So we'll still need banks one way or another.
Oh, yeah.
Do you see it as a threat or an opportunity to have agents dealing with financial healthcare, etc.?
So the place where I see it's a threat, but it's more an illusion, I believe, is that banks, most of the banks, retail banks now, today, talk about customer relationships and their relationship with the customer. Come on, Rick, let's be honest. Do you have a relationship with your bank? Do you have a human that you speak to at the bank?
Well, I do, but yeah.
You must be in a completely different tier. I mean, years ago,
I can talk to the person if I want to. They will not too much proactively reach out to me, but maybe luckily so, because I don't need it, honestly. But I can understand, you explain me how your mortgage model works in the UK, which is completely different from what we have in Belgium. In Belgium, I have a 25-year mortgage, and there is no question asked in those 25 years to remortgage, for example. Completely different game, and probably a much more secure game from both a customer and a bank perspective compared to the model that you have in the UK. And maybe before you answer that, you could briefly explain how that works for our Benelux audience, because I think that is an interesting one.
Okay, so within the mortgages specifically, a bank will give you a mortgage. You could get a mortgage for 20 years, 30 years. However, the rate is only locked in for 3 to 5 years at a time. And that can be a variable rate, a fixed rate, a tracker rate, whatever the case is. And when your period of your discounted rate comes to an end, you have the option of renewing a new deal with the same bank, in which case you don't have to go and apply for a new mortgage because it's still within that 20-year period of the mortgage. However, you do have to undergo legal fees and agents fees and the whole lot, and they go, okay, great, you're on a new package for the next 3 to 5 years. You can also choose, when your rate ends, to go, you know what, Bank B over there is offering me a better deal. and I'm leaving. And that's also okay. Now you've got to go and get a whole new mortgage.
And it's more expensive?
Usually the fees are waived, covered by the bank that you're moving to.
Yeah.
So the cost of switching is quite low, usually. And most people, I end up switching my mortgage every 3 to 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Very often across different banks.
Yeah, and that's where an agent is super, super relevant.
Yes. However, let's park even dealing with agents, and let's just go for it from a daily banking perspective, right? I had blogged last year about divorcing my bank that I'd been with for 20 years. And at the same time, just before that, I think I'd written a blog about I want my father's bank manager. And my reasons for that was saying my father had a deep personal relationship with his bank manager, and his bank manager acted in his interest.
Yep.
But for the last 20 years, the bank that was my primary bank, I might as well have been dealing with an agentic AI on the bank side.
Well, it would be much more objective.
Well, the human that I was dealing with on the very small occasions that it was ever escalated to a human, because usually it was just a chatbot, literally had binary answers. I would like...
Yeah, because that's what the procedure told him.
Exactly. I would like a loan for this. Okay, how much do you earn? I earn this. Okay, no, you can't have a loan. Well, hang on a minute. Why? No, because we don't have this or whatever. But that's it. I might as well just be dealing with an algorithm because that's the way the humans were going. I had no relationship. They had no interest in improving my financial health. And my financial health went up and down like a yo-yo, depending on my age, stage, life, work, and all of that kind of thing. And in the end, I decided to move from them because their big thing was, relationship. And I had what was known as a premier account. It was a high tier, high net worth account where I actually had a human assigned to me. However, there was no relationship there because the person was purely transactional.
Right.
And no leeway. Well, I switched to a different bank. I still have no relationship. However, I've got what I need from that bank, which is I've got a really good interest rate on my money. I've got really good credit score. They've made sure that they give me alerts when things are going, this is what you can do. Here's some tips, some health advice. It's all automated. It's I wouldn't even say it's agentic. This is simple, what do we call it? Yeah, it's just really, really simple stuff. So I don't have a relationship with that bank. I like them. I like them a lot, but I like them as much as I like my electricity provider. They provide a service.
I think it says a lot about the importance of values, mission, and purpose of banks as well, and how much that's being appreciated or not by the end customer. If those agents will become more and more important in the future, do you expect much more rational arguments for personal benefit? Meaning that perhaps banks that are very mission-driven and value-based will be even, that those arguments will be less important in positioning themselves towards customers?
I don't think that they'll be less important at all. As a matter of fact, I think that this is going to be one of the differentiators, because let's start with the basics. Everybody just wants their money to be kept safe. They want their bank to be available. Okay, those are table stakes. Those are the absolute minimum. You don't want to walk in to go and pay with something and they go, oh, sorry, bank X is down today. You can't get your money. You can't pay your mortgage. You can't pay your electricity. So you want your money to be safe. You want it to be, availability has got to be there. It's got to be reliable.
Yeah, those are just commodities.
Those are table stakes.
Yes.
Okay. You want to earn the most return on your own money, and you want to borrow for the least as possible when you need to borrow.
That's again very rational. It hasn't have to do anything with values of a bank or a mission.
Correct. So all of those, everybody's going to have to provide those. That's the starting point. That's the foundation. Now, how do you differentiate and catch the attention of people's personal agents. Well, in the future, I'm going to say to my personal agent, I want you to maximize the value of my savings. However, I've got a few moral and ethical values that I want you to take into account. I don't want you to earn me an extra 10 basis points, but sacrifice my principles by knowing that I'm getting those extra 10 basis points because the fund that backs that particular return is fossil fuel based.
And perhaps maybe that agent will also prevent the branch manager to nudge you towards something that you initially didn't want because it doesn't fit your values.
Well,
It simply doesn't get into the selection list that may get higher returns, but it doesn't fit the values you aspire
you
to.
talk about the branch manager. I'm assuming that you meaning the bank's agent, because very quickly my agent will be talking to the bank's agent.
Yeah, but I was talking about something more tangible for the audience to understand what I meant.
But this is where we're going. You know, banks are probably going to be adopting agentic AI before customers, but customers will very quickly, you know, at the moment, I haven't spoken to a human at my current bank for years. I speak to their chatbot. And their chatbot sorts out everything. So I'm already dealing with an agent. Well, in the future, my agent will deal with that agent. Okay? And that's going to be in the very near future.
Yeah.
But my agent will deal with the agents of every single bank that falls within my criteria, not just one bank. I won't banking to me will be a pure service utility in the future, because my agent will go, okay, query the bank's agent. What's your reliability stats? What's your return? What can you give me on this? What's the best rate you can give me on this? Okay, actually, I need to diversify because your availability is 19, use 7 nines availability, but at the moment I'm earning an extra 20 basis points because the savings is somewhere with only 89% availability, but that's okay because I'm just going to switch that over. My agent's going to be talking to the bank's agent. I am not going to be, the bank will have very little opportunity to influence my decisions. They're going to have to influence my agent. And that to me is going to be one of the crucial things that banks have to get right in the future. How are they going to be able to position themselves to make it attractive for a completely rational machine that's operating for the benefit of the customer? And that may or may not be an existing customer of the bank.
So as a final question, how should they prepare for that era?
Now you're asking me the $1 million question. How should they prepare? Well, the first thing is I think that in this agentic future, the concept of customer relationship is out the window, unless they are going to use that as a differentiator and say, we are going to flip that model around, and your agent will have to deal with a human on the bank side. Can't see that one happening because sheer volume, humans, the banks won't be able to do that. There isn't enough. So that one's out the window. The only way that I think that they can do it, if you take, for example, the piece that you wrote for Chris Skinner's book about the Bank of the Future, you didn't mention...
For my book, by the way.
For your book as well. We weren't talking about agentic or agents in so many...
It didn't exist back then. I wrote the piece in 2020, I think.
Yeah.
There wasn't something like that. We were just talking about wallets. ChatGPT wasn't even there yet.
Exactly. But our concepts still remain the same, in that in order for the bank to be relevant to my agent, it has to understand how to become relevant to me as a human. That may be taking into account my moral and ethical preferences, but more importantly, it has to understand what I am looking for at the best, highest possible level of detail. Most of us would like to improve our financial health. I think that the vast majority of the people on the planet are not saying, yeah, sure, I've got a great financial health. I don't care about that. That's a really small percentage of people in the world.
It can always be better.
It can always be better. And to date, I don't think banks have focused enough on improving people's financial health. And I think that that is going to be one of the key things going forward, is that they've really got to think, in order to be relevant to the average person on the street, how can they help them improve their financial health? Not what products can they offer them? What actual steps can they take to help a person improve their financial health? You know, what can they do? Right now, I don't see banks doing that. They provide you historical information on your position and they go, here's our products.
Right, but how does that look any different in the age of Agentic?
So in the age of Agentic, their algorithm must respond to my algorithm and say, okay,
How we do it.
You have got your client. Here's my 6-step process on how to improve your client's financial health.
Yep.
I can offer this, I can offer this, I can offer this. At the moment, a human in a bank doesn't even offer me that. So there's a big leap between where we are now and an agent in a bank, the bank's agent, being able to do that for me. Now, a lot of people are going to be terrified at this because it requires a lot of personal data.
I think it also requires, in order for the average consumer to build that robot to help him, also requires a lot of digital education.
Will it? Okay, you say build the robot to help him. I think, you know, at the moment, if I want to, I'm at the age where I'm talking about pensions, right? And if I want to do anything with my pension, I have to sign a declaration to say I have consulted the advice of an authorized FCA advisor. Okay? That's going to be replaced in the near future. I'm going to have to tick a box to say my bot is FCA authorized. I won't need to know about this stuff. I'm going to describe in plain words, like you do in ChatGPT today. I'm going to write in plain English what I want.
Yep.
And my FCA or whatever regulation it is and whatever bot is going to go, understood, within the regulatory framework, the risks, your appetite and all the rest. I'll go and find that and make that happen for you. I don't think the banks are ready for that future. And I think that it's going to come a lot quicker than they think it's going to come. That's my key message to banks. What to do about it? No, that's another whole story altogether. Available for consultancy. Actually, I'm not available for consultancy.
I am. No. Yeah, no, clearly exciting times ahead, and this is definitely not the end of this topic just yet. An article on Sunday, I think, with, for example, also a problem statement on liability and who's liable in that kind of process. Again, very interesting in case of hallucinations, etc. Who's responsible when those things happen? But that's content for another session. To the audience, thank you very much for listening. This was a very first tryout, so please do give us feedback. You know where to find us, whether it's over WhatsApp, over email, LinkedIn, whatsoever, whether it's Andrew or myself. Give us feedback on how we can improve this show to make sure that we can build even more relevant content going forward. If you appreciate it, please also endorse and comment it on your preferred channel where you found us. And I hope that we can virtually talk to you again very, very soon. Bye.